Dr. Chris Slininger. I got it. We'll go by Dr. Chris today.
That's fine.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. I'm going to set up the intro to people getting to know you and set the stage for the massive amount that you have done and what you're doing. It's fascinating. But really quick, people who are tuning back in, I want to remind you, and I'm not good at this, so I figured I'll do this at the top. We have 35 other podcasts from local people, people around the nation, Hollywood makeup artists, to people who worked at Pixar, my grandma, Santa Claus. We've interviewed so many cool people doing cool things, and today is no exception. But I just recommend that you go back through our backlog, listen to some of our older podcasts, but please enjoy this one. Dr. Chris is in the studio today, and he literally just told me that he is driven by solving problems, and he just likes to pick the hard ones. And I like that. We had a good laugh about that, but you'll see why. So Dr. Chris is one of fewer than 80 craniocervical specialists nationwide, and is one of only 2 certified advanced orthogonists with a diploma in chiropractic craniocervical junction procedures. Did I get that right?
You did, yep.
Nailed it. That's not a mouthful at all. But you're based in St. Pete, Florida, and you lead Cerebral Chiropractic Center. So you run a business, and not just one, but you work in the production space just like us, which is awesome. And so we were able to get along really well. But at your chiropractic center, you help patients with complex neurological conditions like post-concussion syndrome, vertigo, brain fog, and migraines. And you do this often when nothing else is working for these people. So I'm really excited to dive into what you do personally, because I'm fascinated with it, but also just for people to know that this is a thing, because I didn't know it was even a thing. How are people supposed to know? But anyways, real quick to set some more of the stage, we were first connected through our networking group at NPI. You're one of the newer members there, and so glad to have you on board. And we kind of hit it off right away. And it makes sense because you're in the production realm, and I always hit it off with people who are doing things that I know nothing about. And that's why I like to have people like you on the podcast. So again, thanks.
Absolutely.
And also, just to set the stage a little more, you're an Army veteran, so thank you very much for your service and what you've done for all of us. You're a father of 5, so that's a veteran in a way as well. My goodness, I have 2. So you're an outdoor enthusiast and a man driven by faith and purpose. You're passionate about delivering real answers, real solutions, and just honored to have you on the show. So I know I set a lot up for you. I kind of wanted to understand what brought you to this space. How did you get here?
So when I was, and it's specifically more the complex neurological side of things, right? Yeah. So a lot of this started when I was growing up. I kind of lived at a doctor's office. My mom had so many health issues going on all the time. So I would be sitting there, we'd be in waiting rooms, we'd be in the doctor's offices, or she'd go to visits, and over and over and over she would go. The doctor would have no clue what was causing what problem she was experiencing, give her a diagnosis that didn't really mean anything, suggest medications that tended to make things worse over time, maybe helped one symptom in exchange for 2 additional ones, and would get surgery after surgery with no real lasting results. And the whole time I saw that happening, I never heard her ever come back and say they understand why it's happening, what the root cause of the issue is. It would just be, okay, you have these symptoms, it's called this thing, we're going to give you these drugs, we'll try to make you feel better. And everything was feeling better. But, I looked at it and I'm like, why can't anybody explain what's causing this?
The why is the most important.
It's the most important. And so, I look at it this way, if a tree was, you had a line of trees and one tree had leaves that were browning, you'd probably go to the tree and see what's going on at the roots, that tree is suffering and the other ones were not. You're not going to go to the Home Depot and get green spray paint and make sure the trees are matching the same color, because
Right.
that would be masking the symptom of the underlying problem.
Sure.
Well, we think that's super logical with trees, but we don't think that same logic is super logical with people. And yet we're way more complex, and we have a lot more roots to that issue. So, it was more just like plain thinking. It wasn't that I wanted to dive in really deep. I just wanted to ask the most obvious question imaginable, which is, well, what caused that? And when you have person after person and doctor after doctor not answering you, you get really frustrated. And so I got frustrated young. And
How young are we talking?
I was probably 16 when like the light bulb went off that we're asking the wrong question. So this is a really interesting way to look at it. The one light bulb moment was when I was about 16. I went surfing in the middle of winter in New Jersey. It's ice cold, ice chunks floating in the waves, right?
Dedicated.
Thick wetsuits, and I stayed out way too long, and I ended up getting walking pneumonia.
Oh.
So I had already had a suspicion that the medication that we would take when we got sick wasn't doing anything. Like, we were a NyQuil, DayQuil kind of family. If you get a sniffle, you take NyQuil. Like, every time you get a sniffle, you got to take something because the medicine makes you better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was the logic.
Sure thing. Yeah.
And the argument, even from the doctors, is you don't want to miss a dose of whatever is prescribed or recommended. But you miss stuff because you're busy through a day and you miss your dose. And I'm like, but we're still getting better. Like, this as a kid, I'm starting to put this together. I'm like, I'm still getting better. So every once in a while I would intentionally miss a dose just to see if I still got better. I grew up with 3 siblings, so they would get sick too. It goes around the family.
Sure.
We'd all get sick. And I'm like, it's not seeming like it matters if we take the medicine or not. We all just get better. And sometimes I think I might be getting a little better a little faster than my siblings and feeling better through the process.
Sure.
I'm tired. I have the symptoms, but my recovery is different. So when I got the walk-in pneumonia, my mom brought me to the doctor. They were like, how'd this happen? I said, oh, well, I went surfing and went out too long. Well, they said, that's really dangerous. You shouldn't do that. We're going to give you an antibiotic. Make sure you take this, and you need to rest because this is dangerous. So we go home. My mom is looking at me like, you're going to take this medicine. And we go to the pharmacy. She picks up the meds. But in my mind, I'm going, this is a perfect opportunity to put my theory to the test.
Wow.
I'm not going to take any. I'm going to pocket every single pill.
Oh.
Because I literally had a live or die mindset. And I kind of surf like that too. So I was used to like, hey, I don't care how rough it is. I don't care if it's a hurricane. I want to see if I can conquer it, live or die. Right.
Okay.
So I just
want to know you better already right now.
Yeah. So I went with a bit of a live or die mentality into this. I said, live or die, I'm going to figure out if these pills even matter with pneumonia.
That's brave.
So, and I was 16. And I'm like, I actually don't know if I'm going to come through this. We'll see.
But worth
if I
worth
do,
the experiment.
I'm about to learn something significant.
Yeah.
So we pick up the medication. We go back home. Every single one of them acted like I put it in my mouth, stuck it in my pocket, threw away later. Never took a single antibiotic. They said, don't go surfing because that's how it happened. 3 days later, I went surfing because every time I surfed, my nasal passage would clear, my lungs would clear if I was sick.
Sure.
So I just got used to the salt water helping the situation. So, of course, they say, don't do it. What do? Go do it.
Did your mom know that you went surfing?
No, she was super mad. So 5 days later was our follow-up. So 5 days after the first doctor's appointment, we go back. And the nurse is listening to my lungs. And she goes, wow. She goes, you are the fastest resolving case of pneumonia we've ever seen. She goes, good thing that medication worked. I go, well, actually, I didn't take any. And my mom looked at me like she was about to kill me. And the nurse looked at me like, how dare you? So I'm sitting there. I'm like, what's the problem
But
here?
you just said,
yeah,
I'm
that's
fine.
the thing. I waited until I got the response.
Totally. Smart.
Never showed my cards until that moment. So the nurse walks out. She goes, I'm going to go get the doctor. I'm like, oh, great. This is going to be a terrible day. My mom is like giving me the death stare the whole time. Doctor walks in. He goes, so I heard you're the kid who didn't take his medication. I go, yes, but your nurse said I'm the fastest resolving case of pneumonia she's ever seen. And he goes, well, that's not the point. I go, no, that is the point.
That's the whole point.
And he goes, no, that was irresponsible. That could have really hurt you. I go, but it didn't. And he goes, you should have taken the medication. I said, but I'm better. Like, what? I don't understand what the problem is. And he goes, well, at least you didn't go surfing. I go, well, actually, I did. And my mom, like, I mean, I thought she was going to leap across the room and kill me at that point. And he's just looking at me like, you are so irresponsible. You don't listen to instructions. Everybody's getting me the glare. And I'm sitting there going, I don't think anybody knows what makes the body well.
Yeah.
Everybody's focused on what makes the body sick. And they have no understanding of why I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
It breaks every rule in their world.
Yeah.
So it was on that day I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to figure out what makes the body well. I'm going to ignore what makes it sick. Because if you know what makes it well, then it doesn't matter what's making it sick. You add back in the elements or the behaviors that make it well, and it gets well.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to worry about what the thing is that's making it sick. So if all my focus is on wellness, what makes it well, it's really tough for it to break down.
I'll tell you, you're a really sharp 16-year-old at that moment to turn the table on medicine like that, from a doctor and nurses and your family telling you one thing, and you go against that to experiment, to think through like, that's a scientific experiment. You had a hypothesis, you tried it out, and you used yourself as a test subject.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bravery in that, a dedication in that, and also just popping out of thinking outside of this box that you were placed in. There's a lot there that you're already like, clearly that you had this, that gave you the bug. I think that's when you like got it.
That was the beginning of the bug for sure.
But there's something inside of you that's like obviously a curiosity of root cause of thinking through situations. It's funny because Jan Scorpion, the physical therapist that I just had on, episode 35, we were talking about wellness and health. And I'm glad that you're on right after, because he was talking about that, like the movement and staying moving is part of the healing process, or maintaining your health is just staying moving. It's when you stop doing these things that you get unwell. And so focusing on what makes you well rather than bandaging up an issue and masking it.
Well, I mean, it's the same as a stream. Like, where does the stuff grow? The moving water or the still pond on the side?
Right. Yeah. God, there's a lot there. I'm glad that you set up the stage like that, because we're so early. So from 16, you're in high school or whatever. What was the path there? Did you find a particular college where you're like, oh my gosh, I can do this?
No,
or was that not even
I didn't even know what
field?
college was growing up.
Okay.
So I was thinking like this, but I had no ambition for college. I literally didn't know what it was. My parents didn't go to college.
Wow.
I think my mom went to one semester. My dad went to gunsmithing school. So like I remember senior year of high school, I'm like, I'm thinking about college. What is it? And they're like, I don't really know. Like, there was just no comprehension of this idea of further education. So I was actually the first one in my family anywhere to go to college.
Huh.
And I didn't go right out of school because we didn't have any means to go.
Sure.
But it didn't mean that I didn't have that driving question. So I would keep asking the question and keep putting things to the test to the best of my ability. And I was always the guinea pig. I'm a natural risk taker. I like that. And I'd much rather be the risk taker if I have a better, I guess, resilience for risk. So that those who have less resilience for risk I can say, follow me, I found the way,
Sure.
Not just by theory, not just by study. It's like, if you look back in my life, look at all the times and places I actually put my own health, life, whatever on the line, just to show you this is how it works.
So it wasn't just at 16. You've been doing that consistently since.
I've never stopped. Yeah, I've never stopped. So, So I ended up joining the Army right out of high school as a means to get to college, because we didn't really have any, and it kind of opened the door for us.
Makes sense.
So I joined the Army, became an engineer in the Army, which just opened some doors, especially for the thought process behind being meticulous.
And
I think
how
it
things
actually
work.
enhanced it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got deployed for a year in Kuwait during Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then after I got back, I finally had some time to like think through where I'm going with all this. And all I knew, I still wasn't driven by like, I want to be a chiropractor. I want to be in the medical field. I still just had a question I wanted answered. just what makes the body well. It wasn't like a career question. It was a curiosity question so that I could report back to people who were confused.
Yeah.
So it didn't translate at first into medical. It was just, how does Earth work? How do human beings work? That's it.
Yeah.
And so after I thought about it, I always wanted to help people. Like, I don't like getting rewarded for something that doesn't make someone else's life better.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. So when I was thinking through what am I going to do in my career, I'm like, maybe firefighter, maybe police. Like, I didn't know. I just ran through everything in my head and thought, hey, would I enjoy this till I was 80 if I chose not to retire? Or would I be constantly trying to escape it the whole time I'm in the career?
That's a great question to ask yourself.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
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 And so my friend, one of my best friends growing up, became a chiropractor. And he's like, you should look into chiropractic. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, it's interesting. It's focused on making people well. This is just a general field, but it's focused on making people well. It's helping people. I could actually imagine being like 80 and still enjoying helping people hands-on. And, the things I've learned, I'm helping them learn. And the things I learned to do, I can help them with. And so I decided to become a chiropractor. And this is so interesting because I know this is unusual. I didn't join to go into practice. I didn't go to school to become a practicing chiropractor. I actually went through undergrad and grad school first with the desire to just have my question answered.
Jeez, dedication.
And I saw that the chiropractors who actually understood how the body works and saw consistent results, they were very principled in how they approached it, and they had a really good understanding of how the body naturally worked and what made it well. They were the only group of people I ever talked to that had that mentality. Like, we're not going to focus on what made it sick. We're going to focus on what makes it well and just keep doing the things that make it well. And the people they saw got well.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. So when I saw that, I go, I think they're the people that can answer my question.
Uh-huh.
And so I literally decided to become a chiropractor, just saying, if I never practice, but if I find out what they saw that allowed them to speak with the conviction they speak, that would be enough.
Sure. That makes so much sense. Just curious, because I know people personally who are in other, and chiropractic is definitely more mainstream now than ever.
Yeah.
But now you have sound healing, right? Or Reiki, or kind of people working with different kind of methods of working with energy. What are your thoughts there? Or did you explore those? Or is that something that's interesting to you? I'm just curious about that.
I've explored it some. I mean, sound healing is very provable.
Right.
They've taken things in two different greenhouses play hateful rock music and classical music, and the plants in the one with the classical literally explode in growth and the rest of them die. Right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Even if just saying words the word love versus the word hate to plants, these things carry energy. And I know that can be very esoteric, but I mean, if you can prove it over and over and over again, there's some validity behind it.
Sure.
I don't spend a lot of time in those things. Obviously, if I say, hey, Josh, Naaman Creative is an awesome company versus, hey, Josh, I hate Naaman Creative, you suck, you're probably going to want to hang out with me less. Right?
Sure. We're going to clip that.
So, I mean, words do matter, and it does carry energy with it.
Totally.
But I always thought it was a little odd that we focus on the esoteric before the obvious concrete things.
Right.
In the same way, it's let's speak love to a tree. Okay, did you water it?
Right.
Can we start with the first most critical components that make it tick?
Maslow's
and
hierarchy
then once
of
you
needs.
actually provided its essentials, then maybe give it some TLC.
Right.
The same thing with people. It's funny when people are half my brainstem isn't working. I'm barely getting blood flow to my brain. I don't move my body, but at least I do Reiki. It's okay, yeah, you're not going to get very far. You're going to be suffering, and you're going to become ultra dependent on that care because it's kind of the icing on the top rather than the core foundations of what makes it tick.
Right.
So you have to have prioritization, logical prioritization in the natural order in which the body works.
Yeah.
If you want to see it unlock and be well again.
That's a great breakdown of where things stand. I look at it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I did the same thing with our services. You don't get You could, but you shouldn't jump into producing a podcast for your business if you don't have a logo and brand or even a website. Like, you're jumping the gun.
Yeah.
We need to first establish these things. Even though I want to produce your podcast, I don't want to do it without a solid brand behind it or a website to put it on, etc. So let's get there, and then we can get to this icing on the cake and enhance your brand. It's the same thing with that, or watering a tree and the love that you give. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, some people are like, I just want to be like an Olympic athlete. I'm like, okay, what do you eat? Snacks. I'm like, okay, I don't think we should start with training. I think we should start with the fact that you have no fuel.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just put it in obvious order here.
Sure.
And
Sure.
And part of that is, we're like, I watched it growing up. We're 3 generations deep into delusional medical education for the public.
Oh, in general.
Easily 3 generations, maybe 4.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was the pharmaceutical companies are like, don't worry about taking care of yourself. This will help.
Yeah, just take this pill.
I mean, everything, if you look through the whole history of the medical community, it's everything from telling us we should take like hardcore drugs and smoke cigarettes because that's what your doctor recommends.
Yeah.
All the way to now, like, what are we on? Ozempic, which will probably be illegal in 10 years. And even like Ozempic is a great example. Ozempic isn't even legal in the country it was made.
Really?
So they have to sell it here.
Interesting.
It's not an American product.
Huh.
They had to sell it to the place where we don't care from a nation where they do.
That's wild.
Like, and it's why? Because we're so gullible to buy into stuff that doesn't work. And it doesn't make us well.
100%. And I don't know what it is, but we're so eager to like put stuff in our bodies that otherwise doesn't need to be in there. Like, you're doing something and there's this pill for it, or you could exercise and work on your diet, or you could just take this pill for some reason.
Well, it's not an or. Here, this is really interesting. It's not an or. Pharmaceutical drugs are not able to be metabolized. Like, they will affect metabolism, but it's a chemical control.
Yeah.
Right? A banana is not chemical control over your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's building blocks for parts.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's a fundamental food, right? If anything that's categorized as a true food, means your body will break it down into its micronutrient bases and then take those bases, almost like if you took a Lego castle, you rip the whole castle apart. So now all you have is tiny Lego pieces, and you rebuilt from a castle a car with a house instead.
Mm-hmm.
So same building blocks, different structure. You went from banana to human. You went from, chicken and rice to a human. So nutrition is just building blocks for parts or fuel for energy. It's one of the two.
Not right.
But pharmaceuticals are chemically designed manipulators of physiology. And so by definition, it's a toxin. There's no such thing as a pharmaceutical drug that's not toxic.
Wow.
And back to like the natural law, right? One of the things I teach all my patients is, in order to be maximally healthy, you have to be maximally chemically pure, because you can't be both healthy and toxic at the same time.
Sure.
Which is ironic that the medical community starts with toxicity.
Yeah.
In order to get you well, but it literally violates natural law.
They jump right to it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Take this pill for it. And then you hear at the commercial, like blasting through all of the potential side effects.
They're not side
including
effects.
Death or depression and thoughts of suicide. It's like, that's worth it?
Well, they're not side effects. They're effects.
Right.
We call them side effects as if it waters down the fact that it is having an effect on your body.
Yeah.
It's like, take this drug, it has this effect, which is the one positive you want, and then these effects, which are the negative. Right? How many times have you heard a pharmaceutical drug, when they give the warnings, that they says it might cause vomiting?
Yeah. All the time.
Right? Greatest majority of the drugs could cause vomiting.
Mm-hmm.
Why would it cause vomiting?
Because your body's rejecting it.
Yep. Because vomiting is a detox pathway. So the body identifies it as a toxin and tries to expel it as fast as possible, just like bad food.
Yeah. Right.
But I actually watched this interview. I mean, I almost threw something through the TV. I was so mad when I heard this. It was a pharmaceutical designer, like a scientist that actually designs pharmaceutical molecular makeup. And he was saying, it's really interesting. We've been really trying to overcome this obstacle, but when we create these drugs, the body keeps rejecting it. So we have to find a way to mask the drug so the body can't identify what it is, so it can get deeper into the system before it's exposed. So we coat it. And I'm like, so basically it's like sending a spy in to go topple a government, right?
Yeah.
And you're just putting on a little costume so that the body can't figure out that that's actually super toxic for you. And he was, this designer was super frustrated at the response of the body, because he's like, it's so inconvenient. And I'm like, you know what? It's actually super convenient that our body has a detox system.
Yeah.
You just don't understand what makes the body well. Your entire mentality is the body is fundamentally flawed, and it's your job to somehow manipulate it towards right.
Right.
And you fail constantly because that's not the way natural order works.
Yeah. And you're going against millions of years of evolution to get to this particular body, which is complex, and you're trying to just manipulate it.
No, this is a high-end scientist working at a pharmaceutical company that doesn't have a mentality past buying green spray paint at Home Depot and spraying the leaves green because it's just so inconveniently brown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like
wild.
that's the amount of thought that goes into it. So I had a patient that said it this way one time. He comes in, he was a farmer, and he always had this like farmer wisdom, the farmer examples.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I told you about this. And he goes, hey doc, do you know what the difference between knowledge and wisdom is? And I go, yeah, but I want to hear what you have to say. He goes, well, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad.
Yeah, that's great.
But in the context of what we're talking about, it's amazing how people can have immense knowledge and not enough wisdom to know that the body's rejecting it because you just made a poison.
I think that there's so much dynamic to what you just said regarding what plays into people's ultimate decision-making about doing stuff. You could think about it as drugs or like drinking. That's a toxic. Like for me, I don't drink anymore, and I'm much better. I feel better. I remember things. I'm just clear. And it's just a act of not doing something. But we're always, I was trying to get to this point earlier, and I don't know if I'm verbalizing it, but it just seems like humanity always wants to like add and do more, when it's really maybe sometimes not smoking cigarettes is actually the solution. Just stop that thing and replace it then with a walk. And you're going to be massively different by just eliminating that one thing and doing a tiny little thing. And that doesn't require a pill or anything magic. It's just treating your body as it's probably meant to be.
I mean, people do it with like dogs and kids. It's like they check the dog food for ingredients and give their kids Oreos.
Yeah, right.
The same person. And I'm like, this is psychotic.
But Oreos are so good.
They taste good. But are they good?
No, of course not.
No, but that's like, I hope I'm kind of setting up a framework. Like,
definitely,
the mindset is not, do you like my approach? The question should be, is my approach in line with natural order? If it is not, do not use my service. And if somebody else's is not, do not use theirs and expect to be healthy. But if it's in line with the natural order in which this entire thing is made, how the human body is made, how it actually functions, then if you engage in the things that are in line with its function, then the natural result of those actions or removing actions will be health by law. Let me put it this way, right? This is probably the best way to explain it. If we were at an airport and there was a plane that was at a gate and the plane had only one wing, like the other one broke off, and I said, hey, Josh, why don't you get into that plane? Would you do it?
No.
Why not?
That's not going to fly.
If I give you a piece of paper, can you write down mathematically, based on aerodynamics, exactly why it won't fly?
No.
Why won't you get in it then?
Because I know that it's not going to fly just based by what the little bit I know about how things fly.
Right. So you don't have to be a scientist to understand that plane will not take off because you've seen a bird with a broken wing doesn't fly and all these other things. You've done a paper airplane with crooked wings and it just veers off to the side and crashes into the wall, right? You've had enough encounters with it and you just go, not doing that. We count on planes flying by law or falling out of the sky by law.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when we treat the human body, we talk about what we're going to do with the human body. We don't look at it like law. We act like the human body does not follow any natural laws whatsoever. Planes do. Human bodies don't. Animals do. Plants do. Human bodies don't. I should be able to do what I want when I want and get the results I want when I want. So if somebody like consistently deprives their body of essential nutrients, and then they go, I don't understand why my body's failing. I'm like, you literally didn't fuel it. By natural law, you can't be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
If you cut off a nerve signal, like Christopher Reeve, right? He fell off a horse, broke his neck. He broke his atlas and axis, the top two bones of the neck, severed his spinal cord, literally ended up as a quadriplegic, zero function to any part of his body that did not get a nerve signal, because the signals have to send, or the nerves have to send a signal to control that part. So if you cut off the signal, you cut off the function by law, right? If somebody's like, I don't understand, he should just be able to get up and walk. No, by law, he can't.
That's not the way it works.
By law, though.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of people are walking around essentially as a plane with one wing and wondering why they're falling out of the sky. They don't understand why their health is failing because they don't see it as law. So they want to engage in whatever behavior feels good.
Yep.
Violating all sorts of natural laws. And then when they want to fix it, they violate them even more to try to get well.
Yeah.
And wonder why it doesn't work. Instead of putting it in order according to natural order, and the end result of an ordered life in the context of natural order is health. Mm-hmm. Just like a plane with two wings flies where a plane with one doesn't.
Yeah.
It's black and white. Like, I look at this whole thing as black and white. I didn't start there, right? When I was 16, I was just like, I think I have a theory going on. Now people go, hey, doc, I think I'm going to do this. I'm like, that won't work. They're like, how do you say it so confidently? I go, it's natural law. I'm not making this up. It's not my opinion.
Right.
I don't care what my opinion is. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. If somehow you thrive doing something that completely violates natural law, I'll be amazed.
And we got a research paper on our hands.
And you wouldn't believe how quickly people are like, I don't think I want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Because they often don't talk to somebody who has conviction about what does and does not work concretely. It's like, you should try that. And maybe I should do what's right.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
It's huge. Your approach, it's interesting because what you've talked about so far is this really holistic view of wellness and the way we treat our bodies, which could apply to any doctor or person in the health industry, if you will.
Yeah. And
now you have, because I feel like you'd be such a good primary care doctor, although now you have, and that's probably not enough for you. You have niched quite deeply into not just chiropractic, but with if you could explain it, but you're now in a very particular niche. And so my question is this the niche that you're most fascinated with, or is it that you see the most results, or you like tending to very specific injuries or ailments?
Sure. So yeah, based on that mindset of what makes the body well, one of the things I got exposed to in chiropractic school was the concept of the fact that the body has to be controlled and coordinated by the nervous system.
Right.
And no matter what way you slice it or dice it, you can't get away from the fact that if you lose signal, you lose function. If you alter signal, you alter function. If you minimize signal, you minimize function. So the signal strength, clarity, and accuracy determines the strength, clarity, and accuracy of the functions of the body.
By law.
By law, right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the approach. Now, me personally, once I got that bug, that understanding of that particular part of natural law, then I was testing really trying to put to the test the idea of the general chiropractic field's approach. And a lot of the chiropractic field, and this is no knock on them, I would just clarify as differences, right? But a lot of the chiropractic field was focused on mobility of the spine, but claiming increases in neurological clarity and function. But they weren't testing before or after, so it was an assumption. And so, even with research, whenever you're trying to do something, make an intervention, you want a high level of reproducibility, right? That this intervention caused that outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I did this thing and that thing happens. And almost every time I do this thing the right way, that thing is the outcome of that intervention, right? So what I saw is there was inconsistent outcomes in the general field. Where there was consistency is spinal motion increased. That was pretty consistent across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But we were claiming neurological clarity,
Therefore,
communication between the brain and the body without testing before or after, and making the assumption that it was clear without any tests, validation, objective measures, none of it. So I didn't see that until I came across a couple doctors that were upper cervical specialists. They were a category of their own. And they were talking about the consistency of outcomes, right? And they could prove it. Like their clinics, their patient care, it was consistent, like clockwork. If I could prove the problem, identify the problem, measure the problem, and correct the problem, and then validate the changes afterwards, the expectation of recovery from those neurologically based problems would improve. And it was consistent. So that kicked me on. 'Cause I was about to quit the field. If all I saw was, hey, we increased mobility but claimed something we didn't even test, I was like, I can't do that.
It seems like it wasn't getting to the root, and you found the literal root of making things work, which is the neurological function.
Exactly. So that's what kind of kicked me onto the upper cervical chiropractic field. And I'm the kind of person, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all the way, which is why I ended up doing a lot of postgraduate training.
Okay.
Right. So that's where that extra training came in, is if I was going to do it, I want to do it reproducibly. So I'm a certified advanced orthogonist. We were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
That type of work, we use percussive sound wave instrument adjusting. Basically, it's like a sonic impulse. Think of it like almost like a sonic hammer.
Yeah.
A very gentle version of one. I know that sounds a little more rough, but it's actually pretty much the most gentle way to adjust the spine possible. It's using a sonic impulse you can pretty much not even feel when we do it, and it's shifting the bones in the upper neck back into proper alignment to alleviate pressure or irritation on the brainstem and some of its inputs, as well as some of the blood flow patterns and the cerebrospinal fluid patterns in the brain.
Wow. It's
right?
kind of like sound healing, just way.
It is, but
it's
a lot of the
sound
healing, the common version of it is frequency matching.
Right.
If I find and match resonant frequencies or different frequencies that the body works, or the brain wave patterns, then you can change function over time, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
But we're using it like a sonic shove.
Yeah, it's actually using sound waves, that thing to move particles.
Yeah, I guess a good way of putting it is like if you had a big bass speaker that was going boom, 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 you'll feel it in your body because sound has force.
Yeah.
And so we're harnessing that percussive power of sound to do a little sonic nudge of the bones. But because it's a table-mounted instrument, we can control every angle. So we're adjusting exactly as it needs to be to correct the problem, and it's reproducible.
We talking like millimeters?
We're talking millimeters and fractions of a degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very subtle angles that are all customized to each patient based on their bone structure and their alignment. And we're realigning the upper cervical spine using percussive sound.
All right. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break. Here's a fact. The longer a website takes to load, the lower its conversion rate is. What you probably don't know is that a 1-second delay in a page load can result in a 7% reduction in conversions. And if you reduce a page load time by just 100 milliseconds, it results in over a 1% increase in conversions. Improving website speeds directly impacts lead gen, rankings, and overall sales. Are you complaining about your website's performance? Contact Naaman Creative today at info@naamancreative.com or visit our website at naamancreative.com to learn how we make sure our clients' websites are running smooth. We're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Now back to the conversation. How long is a treatment for that particular thing? I come in and you do that. Is that a 5-minute thing? Is that a 30-minute thing?
No,
or
no.
does it depend?
The adjustment itself, yeah. I mean, max 5 minutes between the setup and the actual intervention.
Wow.
Getting to a point of stability, that's the part that takes time, because a lot of times when people have misalignments up there, they've had histories of concussions or car accidents or significant falls, whiplashes, things like that. I mean, I think the weirdest thing I've heard is one lady couldn't remember why she had Bell's palsy, and then she remembered she was mugged in New York like 21 years before, and the guy who was trying to take her purse kicked her in the neck. And I was like, well, that's a first. I've never heard that one before.
Oh, man.
So people have been through stuff, and sometimes we don't always remember our stuff, but we start to show signs and symptoms of these neurological conditions later.
Sure.
So my job is just to figure out what happened, what it's doing now, how it's affecting the body, how it's affecting communication, then actually calculating how we're going to correct it, and then making sure we work with someone with enough time to get it not just aligned, but in stable alignment so that it's not irritating the nervous system and communication gets opened again.
Uh-huh. And
I hope I'm explaining that well.
No, you're doing great. Like if I'm understanding some stuff, then I think most people can.
Okay.
So yeah, this has been great. You use the sonic blaster or whatever you call it.
Sonic blaster.
That's my understanding. That's
gentle sonic blaster.
This
just to clarify. No, it's very, very gentle.
And that's one method. What can you talk through, like some of maybe the other things on what you do, what you perform on the patients that come in?
I mean, that's the primary thing.
Okay.
Here's why. I'll give you a good example. A lot of people go to a chiropractor because they have back or neck pain.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't move right and it hurts. What we don't commonly know is that all the muscles that stabilize your spine, not just the big ones that you can feel, but the tiny ones that are between each vertebra, those muscles are controlled and coordinated by nerves in your upper neck in the lower part of the brainstem called the vestibular nucleus. So think of it like a computer chip that takes information from your eyes and your inner ears and your proprioceptors through your body, which are like nerves that give you spatial awareness. It integrates the information and then it sends signals out to the muscles to tell them how to stabilize and pull to keep you straight against gravity. So posture is actually an unconscious function,
right?
Like your heartbeat.
Right.
So if I say to you, hey, Josh, sit up straight, and you put in, hold on, but if you put in, he's literally sitting up straight. If I ask you to do a conscious action to control an unconscious function, it'd be like you having a heart murmur, and I'm like, Josh, why don't you just try harder? And you'd be like, that's not fair. I can't control that. Well, you can't control your stabilizers of your spine either, because they're involuntary muscles. So posture breakdown often involves neurological control problems, that there's an irritation or a discrepancy or some sort of interference in the system that controls it, causing the breakdown, causing it to weaken, which causes it to hurt.
Jeez.
So instead of trying to push and shove the rest of the spine, like we're trained to do it, but we don't have to do it very often because we activate the central command of the whole system, and then the spine will straighten itself. Like I see a lot of, especially kids with scoliosis, most of the time we don't have to touch the rest of the spine. There's severe versions of it, but like the milder scoliosis, a lot of times all we have to do is correct the neck, restore the communication pathways, the vestibular nucleus takes over, and the spine straightens itself.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And how long of a period is that over? I mean,
if they're young enough, I mean, it can be a matter of a month or two.
Wow.
I mean, sometimes a little longer, and in more severe cases, there's some bone structure changes that need to be addressed. But like I said, in the milder scoliosis cases, a lot of times the bones are shaped fine. They're just being pulled super hard by the muscles that are out of balance, and those muscles aren't voluntary, they're involuntary. So you have to work on the system that controls it without the root, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's the root to everything, whether it be branding for us. What's the root of your business? Okay, now we can start talking about what that logo looks like or what that brand actually should be. What the root is on your dietary problems. Oh, it's because you're eating 10 Oreos every single night and in the morning. Yeah, that's a root. Or obviously I'm simplifying it, but it seems like you've found pretty close to a root.
Yeah. So like you were asking, like, why did I niche down here?
Yeah.
I think you said it when we first opened. I like picking the hard problems to solve. So I'm absolutely driven by solving problems. I like solving the ones that people scratch their heads and don't know how to solve. And I like diving into them. When it comes to neurological issues, I see so many people live for so many years or decades with problems that no one has an answer to, and they're just taking drug after drug with no real solution, and they end up settling for pain management of some sort. It's symptom management. So if it's like headaches, I've met people all the way from, keeping Advil or Aleve in their purse to, essential oils. They, take pan away and put it on their forehead, and they're like, it works every time. And I'm like, and you'll have the headache tomorrow, right? I'm like, so obviously the root cause of why you have it is still there.
Sure.
And so there's these categories of neurological problems I was seeing nobody's solving. The biggest one for me, I think it was the first thing you mentioned, was concussion and mild traumatic brain injury. And a big reason why I wanted to focus there is I had a lot of buddies in the military who ended up in blast injuries or head injuries. They had PTSD, they were suicidal, they'd been, I talk to veterans all the time. They're in mental health counseling and getting no help. And it's because they're trying to fix the end effect of a deeper root problem, that there's mechanical irritation and interference in the way the brain is functioning. So like I guess a good way to describe the difference between how I would approach a mild traumatic brain injury case and a mental health counselor would treat a mild traumatic brain injury case when there's like mental health issues, cognitive decline, and like PTSD, is the mental health world is kind of trying to fix the software, and I'm trying to fix the hardware.
Yeah.
Because I know that no software works without the hardware functioning first by law.
Yeah.
Right?
Your software is no good if you
so you hardware. Can do that for the next 10 years. Good luck. The most you're going to learn is when you get really, really angry because you're feeling like you're losing control, walk out of the room and come back later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the extent of the skills you learn. And they know it. Like I've talked to them and they're like, yeah, that's about it. Like I know if I'm feeling this way, don't talk to my wife until I calm down. Right? And that's it. It's coping skills.
Yeah.
But they're not actually better.
Sure.
They're just learning to live with it. And I hate that quote unquote live with it mentality. When I'm like, look, when like this is what I find, people with mild traumatic brain injuries and concussions, especially from blast injuries, they have problems not only with the brainstem, which is below the brain, because a lot of these people, they get MRIs, they get all these tests, and it's clear. Can't find the problem. And this person's like, yeah, but my life's falling apart. So why? Why is this happening? So they have serious neurological communication issues, irritation on the brainstem, which has connections to the limbic system, which is like the emotional center of the brain. So it's driving their body into fight or flight all the time, right? Fight or flight is what we use when we're in a life-threatening situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, taking a vacation is not a life-threatening situation. People that are stuck in fight or flight like that, they don't have a situational stress, which is like, hey, okay, I'm in a stressful situation. My body kind of rises up a little bit. When the situation ends, it should calm back down naturally. They never calm back down because they're stuck not in a situational stress, but a physiological stress. It's driven from the inside and it doesn't ever shut off until you fix the irritant.
Huh.
And so that's why they learn coping skills, because day and night never shuts off. They can't sleep well, can't think well. Digestion is all messed up. They are a hot mess. there's a lot of symptoms associated with it. So irritation on the brainstem, getting stuck in fight or flight, and then there's 3 other things that I see affected. A lot of times they have poor blood flow into the brain. So some of the critical blood vessels, the vertebral arteries and the carotid arteries, go right through the upper cervical spine. And when they get blasted or hit in the head, they end up with these massive whiplashes on top of the shock wave itself. And it disrupts or misaligns that upper neck, and it will start to slow down. It'll put a tension or compression on the blood vessels, usually the vertebral arteries over the carotids, but it slows down blood flow into the brain, so it starves it out. So it's not a stroke. A stroke would be a total cutoff.
Right.
It's like just slightly pinching the hose.
Yeah.
So a slow flow over a long period of time will suppress the entire brain's activity. Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
following.
and then it tends to also put some compression on the jugular veins. And this one, I can't believe how many times I've seen MRI reports where radiologists, and it's no knock on radiologists, they're not actually trained to report on this, but I've talked to a few and they're like, I see that stuff all the time. There's compression on the jugular veins, and the jugular is the main drain of the entire brain.
Huh.
So the blood that's going in, even if it is getting in effectively, is not effectively draining out. So it affects pressure regulation.
Right.
You're getting pressure pumped in, and the drainage pathways are clogged, essentially. And so the pressure builds in the head. They have intracranial pressure, right? The pressure in the head, pressure behind the eyes. And then the last component is the flow of cerebrospinal fluid. So the brain and the spinal cord are basically bathed and float in this cerebrospinal fluid, which does a few main things. It nourishes the brain. It protects the brain with impact. So it's like a shock absorber. But it also is the filter system of the brain. So it washes the nerves, essentially. And it has to collect all the waste. And all the waste from the brain, once it's collected and put back into the fluid, will come to the midline of your skull, like right down the center of your skull from the top going backwards. It's called the central sagittal sinus. And though that central sagittal sinus splits off into 2, so it goes to the left and to the right, and it drains out the jugular veins. Well, so if the jugular veins get compressed, it will back up the filter system and the brain won't clean.
Wow.
And if you leave that long enough, that clean, clear cerebrospinal fluid that should be nourishing it and cleaning it just turns into sewer water, and the brain sits in it for years and years and years. And so it actually begins early neurodegeneration because the brain literally is in a toxic environment.
Whoa.
So all of that tends to happen simultaneously, especially in blast injuries.
Jeez.
And they get stuck there structurally. It's actually biomechanical structural problems causing neurological and hydrodynamic problems. And so the reason why nobody's seeing it is it's 4 systems away from their symptoms. And you have to trace it back to its root and go, oh, this caused your symptoms.
Right. But they're only going to, here's your symptom. Let's talk about it.
You have
Therapy.
headaches, here's a pill. You're
And
getting
there's
dizzy,
right.
Try not to move. Let's see if we can reset the crystals. You're getting migraines, let's see if we can get a blood thinner in you. You're getting neck tension, let's give you a muscle relaxer. Symptom management.
Right.
And then let's watch and wait and see what happens. I'm sorry, if I don't have blood flow to my brain, I would prefer not to watch and wait.
Yeah.
If I don't have good filtration of my brain, I would prefer not to watch and wait. I'd much prefer to get down to the root of what's driving that functional issue and correct it, get it stable so I can live on for years and years with a brain that actually works.
It makes so much sense. I have lots of questions, but trying to navigate here on what, are you... Obviously, your practice and you being on this podcast, you have a documentary, which I'll put in the show notes. You're obviously trying to get the word out in ways. I'm wondering, is it you and some little blips that are trying to, or maybe not trying to, actively go into the VA system or these different parts of the healthcare world, and kind of shake people and go, look, let's maybe consider this, and here's some research. Are you putting out research? What are you besides what I had mentioned, or maybe you could elaborate on, because it seems frustrating. Now I'm kind of frustrated. Like, that seems obvious now, and we've been talking for maybe an hour, not even.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem unreasonable that to adopt this particular thing into, for instance, let's just focus on VA care.
Right.
I mean, we need to take care of these people. That should be a given, and properly. So how do you integrate into there to make it part of the care?
You can't. I've tried for many, many years.
Okay.
So here's the thing. There's a big difference. What I'm talking about and the way I'm talking right now, this is farmer simple wisdom.
Okay.
Right? We're going from the plain obvious, like, hey, that tree's brown because it's not getting water. Right? And like, I'm talking about the brain. You're like, why is that so obvious now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's why it's frustrating.
How do you think your brain will work if the blood flow slows?
Yeah. If you have sewer water sitting in there.
Would you say better or worse? Let's just go with that, right? That simple. And it's so obvious that it's like, it's one of those things once you see, you can't unsee, right?
Yep.
Then you go into research, which is going from the obvious hypothesis and the anecdotal evidence into clinical reproducibility. When you go from research to policy change, then you get the resistance of bureaucrats and all sorts of stuff like that.
Pharmaceutical company.
Well, that's financial gain. So you have a resistance of financial gain because if you actually make plain the complicated, or what they try to keep complicated so you don't understand it, then you're constantly going to go back as a customer because you think that's the only way.
Right.
Until you see something that's plain as anything, like, hey, I'd prefer to water the tree rather than get green spray paint from Home Depot, right? Like, just going back to these simple analogies, like, the public is like, well, that makes sense.
But you're a threat to the people moving the levers.
Speaking like this, speaking plain is probably the greatest threat because it makes obvious the obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, when there's financial gain, where there's entrenched bureaucracy, when there's slow moving policy, and when there's resistant culture, it is very hard to shift it.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes, yeah, you have to go over everyone's head and you have to find someone who cares. Right? A lot of people that get into the systems then protect their own career rather than make impact. And a lot of the people that make impact are the outcasts, the underdogs, and the ones that get threatened by the people who don't want the world flipped upside down on them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't care. Right?
Yeah.
Because I got into this for one reason, which is to figure out what makes people well and to share it.
Yeah.
So you're asking, what do we do about it? Research is definitely on the agenda. So Cerebral Chiropractic Center, like, we're right here in St. Petersburg, but we're establishing that as a research center. We're collaborating with other researchers too.
Great.
And integrating with universities. So we're starting talks with USF. We have a couple chiropractic colleges that are research heavy. They're going to be working with us.
Great.
We're looking for grants and opportunities. One of the ones we're seeking out is US SOCOM, with Special Forces Command. They are looking actively for people to help them understand how to keep brains healthy for their guys that get blown up all the time.
Perfect.
And there's more. There's a lot of resources out there. So that's on the research side. On the education side, I teach a ton. I teach my own field, but I also started a company called Synapse Continuing Education, which is cross-professional education. So it's not just teaching your own field, like dentists teach dentists and neurologists teach neurologists and podiatrists teach podiatrists, but instead, I'd rather have a neurologist share with a dentist share with a physical therapist, and see how the fields overlap so that we minimize overlapping care and maximize patient outcomes. The big companies aren't as interested in this one, but the local specialists, high interest. Most of them are driven by impact. They just want their patients well.
Yeah.
And they'd rather have their businesses and their reputations built off of outcomes. And I'm built the same way. So that platform, that thing that we're building through Synapse is designed to share this across industries.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I'm sharing with you, like, I have a 12-hour MTBI course we're in the middle of producing right now. I've already done 3 of the hours fully recorded. And we've already shared in symposiums cross-professionally and with some of these other agencies. Their eyes are starting to open because they're like, well, that makes sense,
Great.
And then outside of that,
there's
but there's more. outside of that, when you're trying to make an impact in a local community that continues to expand, you have a couple options. You can, I see chiropractors all the time, and we've done this before where we get out to a community event, you get a booth and you share information, but it is one-to-one. And I'm a one-to-many kind of person. Because I didn't get into this just to treat people. I got into this to teach people. Right? So we're in the middle of publishing our first book, and I have 3 or 4 others already about half written, all in this category of essentially teaching by natural law, but specific to topics that matter for people. So we're going to be doing it more and more and more. Like you said, I produced that documentary called The Secret to Healing. That documentary, I interviewed 30 upper cervical specialists around the country and in Canada that all had a very firm understanding of these concepts, and they articulated it so wonderfully. So we were able to produce, it's more of an information heavy documentary, but it's easy to watch because they make these analogies plain.
Sure.
So even though they're talking about really complex neurological problems and neurodegeneration, they're explaining it in simple terms.
Like you just did. I mean, you've done a really good job of that, I feel like. And that's the hardest part, I believe, of health and science is you have these hyper specialists who have dedicated their whole lives to learning it and researching it. How do they disseminate that in 5 minutes or
Many
something
don't.
simple? Exactly. That's the hardest part of it.
Yeah.
And that's why people are disconnected from these breakthroughs in health or wellness or whatever it is that could be game changing, but there's so many barriers that you have to break through. And the first one, in my opinion, that's the most important, is just communicating it first so people can get a baseline of what this thing is, because you've devoted your time to it. They have not.
Right.
I've been practicing basketball my whole life. I don't know what you're talking about. How do I understand that?
Right.
How do I disseminate a life's work into this 5-minute segment on CNN?
And that's what I'm trying to do. And I've tried it on the short forms, but it's hard to get a lot of information out in context in short form, like TV segments. So we are sticking more with the long form. We're trying to get on more podcasts. We're trying to do more long form content and produce our own content to make it explained, right?
Sure.
Same thing with the website, like cerebralchiropractic.com. I didn't make it to just be a place where we go, we can help you if you have these conditions. Like, that is a information heavy website.
Oh yeah. It's a hub.
It's a hub, and we're going to keep putting more and more information out there, explaining the whys behind it so that we become a massive resource, whether or not someone comes into our clinic for care. I have colleagues all over the nation. So like, some people will be local. We'll be able to help them more directly. Some people are other places and there's doctors near them. But if they want that kind of precision and care, they need to see an upper cervical chiropractor specifically. But yeah, outside of that, like, the way I describe our mission in cerebral chiropractic is whether or not somebody in our region comes in for care, they should know who we are and why we exist. And our name should be a staple among those places that are known with a reputation of getting people well. And so if we accomplish that goal, I'm not so worried about the business side of things. Like, I actually like entrepreneurship, but I don't want to be successful as an entrepreneur if I didn't make an impact.
Yeah.
So I'd rather focus on the impact first, and the natural byproduct of that is a successful company.
In my opinion, that is going to bring you more success anyways. I think the authenticity of that, it's clear you're mission driven, and the business will come. In my opinion, as well as my experience, that works. You're bringing people to you in so many different ways, making yourself a staple in the industry, whether it be in education or research or community, and actually moving the needle forward. People are going to find you, and the people who need you will, and in proximity, can use your services. And it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to maybe monetize or at least pay for some of your efforts on these other aspects.
Well, and that's a big part is you kind of, when you get into these specialty fields, you have to be successful in business, so that you can keep making impact, because it's not cheap to do good work, to stay up on training, to drive research, to fund research. Like, all these things are expensive, but they'll change the world.
Yep.
You were asking one thing though. I just wanted to. I think this is a really good summary of the way we're trying to communicate. You said you got these people that are spending all these years being specialists in niche fields on the cutting edge and can't even communicate. And one thing I always keep in my mind is if I was explaining this to myself at 15 as a kid who didn't even know what college was, would I even understand it?
And so you speak that way.
I do. Like,
Right.
would my family go, oh,
Yeah.
that makes sense? You know, it's not smart or dumb. I think it's wisdom versus knowledge.
100%.
Am I speaking in terms of wisdom? Because wisdom typically is understood across every intelligence level.
Yeah.
Whereas intelligence is understood by the intelligent people.
That's a great breakdown. And I'm not saying that I'm wise, but through my teaching at the Art Institute, I did 6 years there. And I experienced that where it's like, how do I break down all of my learning of branding, logos, and the processes and all this complexity to people who have no idea about it yet? And it kind of forced me to like apply these methods and these processes in a way that was digestible and bring foundations. And so it taught me the foundations even more. Like, I'm sure this conversation, all the conversations you've had, continually help you to understand the fundamentals and principles of what's happening even better every time you think about it, because you're forced to think about it in a different way at its root. Essentially, the roots of how does a logo come about? Well, it's the last part is clicking in this program, Illustrator, your vector program, and the buttons and where the buttons are. That's like 5%, in my opinion. Okay, 10 or whatever, 20. But that 80%, it's the process of
Right.
how we get to that, the questions that we're answering, the why, the root of who this business is. What are we making? Why would we use this color, this line, this shape?
Yeah.
And then we can click and perform it, just like the why, all of this, and then you're under this sonic blaster.
Right.
What is it called?
Technically the advanced orthogonal percussion adjusting instrument. Everything apparently that I'm either titled or use has a very long name.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Sonic
So
blaster.
we call
it
it sound wave adjusting.
sound wave adjusting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And back to the logo.
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you something you'll never unsee again, right?
Let's do it.
We did the same thing with the logo for Cerebral.
Mhm.
It looks like a couple squiggly lines,
Mhm.
but when we explain it, the first largest hook represents the fact that the brain needs healthy nerve signals. The red line indicates it needs healthy blood flow, and the third is the cerebrospinal fluid. It needs healthy and proper cerebrospinal fluid flow and filtration.
Love
If
it.
you have 3 of those, your brain could be well again.
Love it. Yeah. So you thought through that.
It
Yeah.
means something.
I was looking at your logo and I was kind of trying to figure it out. I'm glad.
It's either that or it's
yeah.
Captain Hook's hook.
Yeah, right. Or almost a question mark.
Yeah.
But all those things you can play with,
Yeah.
you know, because you just got to play with what people see. Oh yeah, that was intentional. So can anybody, I've had a concussion or shock blast and I'm really not well. Those are obviously targets for who you can help. But I'm just curious, like, do you have any patients that come to you that are well but want to get better? Is that
Yeah, so we
anything?
have 3 other categories that we focus on, and we'll work on the campaigns behind getting the word out. I like long form. We'll probably launch them with a book, each of these campaigns, right?
Love it.
So that it's not just like, hey, come in and get checked, which has no context whatsoever. So the 3 categories are healthy neurodevelopment, which is the book we're about to release.
Sweet.
Dr. Ethan Supernaut, who works with me, and I co-wrote that. So you'll see that soon.
Great.
The second is brain-based performance. So taking athletes who want to perform better. Athletes know a lot about mind-muscle connection, it has a lot more to do with the voluntary side of it, that if I put a high focus on a certain action, movement, or muscle, I can actually recruit more power out of it. Right. So that's voluntary.
Wow. Yeah.
What that doesn't cover is the involuntary control, which increases power, coordination, and stability.
Yeah.
And that's the part we deal with, is the maximum activation of all the stabilizers, which actually maximizes power, coordination, and endurance.
Whoa. That
All
could
on the
be
unconscious
enormous.
side. It's
Oh
going to
my gosh.
revolutionize that. So that one's coming real soon. And then the third one is brain maintenance. As people age, one of the biggest concerns, and honestly, I mean, this isn't political, but we watched a president decline, and I think everybody, cognitively decline. And I think a lot of people felt like, man, it doesn't matter who you are, it could happen to anyone.
No.
And that one happened on the world stage. And everybody can admit it just wasn't quite right.
No.
At a minimum, it wasn't quite right. Right?
Yeah.
But neurodegeneration, your dementias, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that are a real thing. But what I've noticed is most people are just afraid that it might be coming because someone they knew or someone they're related to had it, but they don't know how to prevent it because they don't even know what makes the brain well.
Yeah.
So the brain maintenance side that we're about to launch is all about the preservation of the brain well into old age to maximize its functions and offset any detrimental effect that would lead to neurodegeneration. So those are the three like wellness categories we would work in.
Dude, you are like, there's so much there. You're going to blast off. So the last question before a fun segment.
Okay.
You have 5 children. You just explained 3 new spokes of your business, which could be revolutionary in certain cases or all cases, plus the work that you're doing in education, plus then actually serving your clients or patients and doing the work and managing your business and coming to network every Wednesday morning and coming on this podcast. Like, what are your methods of keeping your life organized and keeping these things moving forward properly?
Well, the biggest anchor point, I have an amazing wife.
All right.
Straight up.
That's a root.
Well, I couldn't be as crazy as I am without someone who could understand a little of the crazy.
Uh-huh.
But she absolutely anchors what we're able to do. We actually homeschool our kids. So, and she takes that on.
I forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah, she takes that on.
Wow.
So, I think it's a constant evaluation of where the priorities are and the impact it makes and the stability in which we can maintain it. So sometimes you engage in something that's a sacrifice at first and a payoff later. Sometimes it's a sacrifice with no payoff other than its impact itself. And other times you have to do what's necessary to maintain stability. And so it is a juggling act, and it's a constant assessment and reassessment of those priorities. But I'm driven by impact, period.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure impact is sustainable, because I've done this enough to myself where I'm like, let's make impact, and it's totally an unsustainable route. So I actually end up not helping as many people because I didn't think through it enough.
Yeah.
So tying entrepreneurship and how would I say it? Collaboration with others becomes the sustainable fuel for maximum impact.
100%. You're not carrying all that weight now. And actually, you're probably able to reach more people by co-authoring a book or a research paper or running your business with someone else.
Yeah.
Or you and your wife, your partnership in managing 5 children's lives.
But there's no secret. I mean, I'm up at 4 a.m. almost every single day. Just so I can take care of myself. Like, I work out in the mornings.
Yeah.
I work till I drop half the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I fall asleep with my hands on the keyboard. I'm still going. So I'm not living a life for vacations or time off. I hope at the end it just reflects the level of impact I was trying to make. And we can have fun along the way, but it's kind of just fun through all of it.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is we're also not trying to live an American dream. I think that is a big old farce. Right? I'm going to strive hard to get to doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
When people describe the American dream, that's how I hear it.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to work super hard so I can get to retirement and enjoy it. I'm like, so you die early.
Yeah.
Right? Show me one person that does nothing and thrives.
Sure.
It doesn't exist. Everywhere that people live long and healthy, they never let up on impact. In fact, it tends to scale up in eldership.
Sure.
Everywhere here, you work super hard, stress yourself out, finally get yourself financially stable so you can have passive income so you could do like nothing impactful and then exist for a while talking about stupid things. Right? That's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just don't even play the game. I don't care.
No.
I'm not trying to get to retirement. I can't even imagine retiring. I think I would die before I got to retirement just knowing it's coming.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather scale up my impact, and my roles will change. The way I make impact will change. But the idea of just giving up at some point, don't even have the thought in my head. And so because of that, I'm not seeking the same type of balance you would normally think of.
Sure.
Like by the end of the day, I'm usually fired up more than at the beginning, because all day long I poured myself out towards the things I'm trying to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of trying to accumulate for myself.
Right. I love that. I also, think about retirement, like we're very much aligned because I love what I do. I like making things. I have a game. I have shows. I have documentaries I want to produce, books to write. I have things to design. I don't see, 65, I just stop wanting to do that. But it's finding what you love to do. And then you just want to keep doing it. That's the tough thing, is I don't think everybody is able to, depending on their circumstances or whatever happens, find a stride of, I love doing this, because then there's no want to retire, because like, I like doing this. I want to keep making wooden boxes forever because I love making wooden boxes. Then there's no need for retirement. I think retirement may be like, I'm good on money and I can now play around and do whatever. Maybe that, but
maybe
I don't
that's
know.
the only balance I seek, is I'm not waiting for the day I can play. I'm just playing the whole time.
Right. I love that.
Right?
I love that. Yeah.
But you have to play wise so
Sure.
that there's sustainability and increase along the way, so that you can scale up the impact, pass it on to the next generation. I mean, like I got this from the military. One of the best things I think I can do to make impact is reproduce my ability in others. But
That's a
there's
great way
one
to
thing
frame
above
it.
that I could do, which is to reproduce my ability to reproduce myself in others.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Right.
So if I train doctors, or if I train speakers or teachers of different types, I'm making impact. If I train trainers to train doctors and teachers, then all of a sudden there's no lack of scalability.
Yeah.
And so we moved to that point, and now we're going to gouge the common market and actually shift, like makes massive shift, because now there's an army of people and you can't stop our reproducibility.
Yeah.
So if we can get there, and I mean, that's really the ultimate goal, is I might not be the ones with the hands-on, but vicariously I'm doing 10,000 times the impact I could alone.
Absolutely. And that honestly seems to be the goal of what you're doing through everything. It's awesome. I'm so glad we had this conversation. We're wrapping up, but before we wrap up, we have a really fun segment.
Okay.
I was saying it's super fun. It was fun for me. It is called the Rapid Fire.
Okay.
Different sound effects every time.
Okay.
So now we're officially in it.
Okay.
And ultimately, I ask about 5 basic questions, and not so basic in ways. And your goal is to answer them as quickly as possible, or with as less amount of words as possible. But if you need to elaborate, that's
I'll
cool.
try not to.
But you just lose points.
Okay.
So
one word answers win, huh?
they're really hard, but some people do it.
Okay.
And it's crazy. But don't get in your head too much. If you need to elaborate, it's all good. So, number 1, what is your biggest source of inspiration?
I would say just spending time with God. That's absolutely.
Okay.
It's most of what I understand I didn't come up with on my own.
It comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right. What is your favorite book that's impacted your view on life or health or business? Or just your favorite book. Could be Harry Potter.
No, it's not Harry Potter for sure.
Yeah.
I'll give you one that's recent. I don't know if I have like favorites, but there's one called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and just more recently, it has to do with how founders sometimes will trap themselves in putting on their shoulders things that they can delegate out if they're wise, and they can run their companies rather than be the bottleneck of their companies.
Yeah.
But it has so much crossover into family life and all these other things about prioritization and just like letting go of the things you actually should be training others to do. So whether it's hiring out, training out, whatever, the ability to scale your impact a lot of times comes from buying back your time. And it just struck a chord with me. Really good for me and my wife. Yeah.
That sounds perfect. I like fast track that book into my brain, because that's the hardest part, is not being the bottleneck in your business when you're the one who started it and know everything and you're trying to have your hand in everything, but it's really letting others do the work and you're managing it and letting things flow. Oh, there's so much there. But we're in rapid fire. Sometimes the rapid fire questions end up being longer than the actual interview questions.
I mean, we could go for it.
Yeah. Okay. You can listen to one musical artist or album for the rest of your life. What's on repeat?
Shoot, I don't know. I'm really not a music person, but it would be something in the classical realm that just makes my mind wake up.
Okay, so classical music.
Just, yeah, like energetic classical.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Love it. I've been definitely in the last, 3 years, like half the time I throw on an instrumental playlist that's more classical or soundtracks.
Yeah.
There's something there where I can just get into a flow.
Yeah. But I'm not like the kind of person that loves a particular artist.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's all good. That's acceptable. There are no wrong answers, by the way. You spend
just deduct points.
yeah, you definitely lost points there. No, just kidding. So you spend the day with anyone, dead or alive, full day. Who's it going to be?
Oh, man. I guess it was just like a regular person. I would say one would be, I'm going to give you two. One would be Jesus. Absolutely.
Okay.
But number two, this guy had grit like nobody's business, would be George Washington. That guy, the
Right
stories I have seen, not in our history books, you read like some of the other accounts, that guy had grit.
Yeah.
Just straight up courage and grit.
Clearly.
In a way that we do not see. And I'd just like to see what he saw beyond the risk of everything he did.
Sure.
It'd be cool to spend a day with him.
Well, number one, I think about when my wife has given birth to two of our daughters, and our only two daughters. I don't know why I phrased it like that. And I think about what humans did before hospitals and medicine, or, of like knowing sanity, just the elements of how resilient we were as a species before where we are now. I can't even imagine. But obviously they didn't know. And so, people might look back on us and go, how did they live with just a little phone and, or whatever. But anyways, I'm constantly impressed by that. So like the same applies to someone in George Washington's place. And then I forgot to mention, though, that you, in part of your bio that I read and learned about you, is that you're really into history.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read, what is it? If you don't know history, you have a tendency to repeat it.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
It's that, and I think after I felt kind of duped by the medical community, I was like, am I duped by the history books too? I started digging, and I started to learn, whether it's natural law, science, medicine, or history, just go to source texts. And so I started reading just older stuff to understand, and it's totally different than the summaries we get, especially in America.
Sure.
Like, my wife was born and raised in Spain, so she sees the world through a Spanish lens. It is not like our American lens.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember thinking growing up that the way history works is the world was super primitive, and then America was born. Like that was like the overall arching like theme is like,
wait, that's not
it
true.
It was okay, and we kind of got by, and there was a couple like brief moments where we were kind of innovative, but once America happened, the world changed.
Yeah.
Did things change? Yes, but not like we say it, and we never recognize our downfall or the things we do to also cause some chaos. So
yeah,
I just decided I was going to start doing that, and once I started reading, I'm like, I'm going to read mostly source text from now on because this is drastically different.
And that gets back to like I feel like your core principle, and I'll try to figure out a way to weave it into the title of this, but the word root.
Yeah.
You're like constantly digging at like, what are the roots of the world? What makes us tick? What has happened? And going to the root of understanding. I mean, where else do you go to gain true understanding? It seems like you want clarity and like what's really going on.
Yeah.
And you find your way to as close to the root or at the root as possible, which is really cool that we've kind of like unraveled that. And I'm sure you've obviously known that, but through this time in just this interview, it's been really cool to like get to that. 'Cause I feel you on that.
It's simple. Like a lot of people say, how did you do that? And I go, why did you do that?
Yeah, sure.
Because if I understand why, then I might take a different route and get to a very, very concrete, similar conclusion.
Sure thing.
Or I might understand what you're doing better because of the why behind it.
Yeah.
And so then I don't just have the knowledge, I have the comprehension and the understanding too.
Love it. I told you some of these questions, it's not so rapid, and that's okay. That's on me. Points lost for me. You got
There
that,
you
Jordan? You take points off.
I'm leading in the
cool.
scoreboard.
Yeah, you are. Last one, though. How do you define success?
Impact.
There's our one word. Boom. That's perfect. Impact and root. Those two.
No, root is not the driver of success. I think root is the foundation of what allows it to happen.
I love that. I was just talking about the title of this episode. I never talk about the title of the episode while I'm talking to the guest, but I feel like the word impact and root should be in there. I'm going to make a note of that. You have won the rapid fire.
There we go.
Congratulations. Woohoo. This has been awesome. I just realized like how this has flown by. I love talking to people who I don't know what is that their field is. It's just fascinating. And what you do is important, inspiring, and fascinating. And so it's just got the trifecta. I like to leave people before you drop people on where they can find you, although it'll be in the show notes, is what is a nugget of I don't know, inspiration that you can leave any guest, whether they're in your field studying or a basketball player, someone young, someone old. What's something that resonates with you that you'd like to pass along?
Well, I mean, sticking with what we've said, like whether, like, don't settle for anything less than understanding the root. Like it really is that. It'll drive you to an intolerance of anything short of excellence.
That's great.
It really will.
Yeah.
And when it comes to healthcare, no matter where somebody is or what their healthcare problem is, have an intolerance for any healthcare provider that's unwilling to go down a root cause approach. You're allowed to fire your doctor. Not a lot of people know that. You can fire me.
Right.
You hired them.
Right.
Like a lot of people don't realize they hired their doctor. It's like, my doctor said I had to do this, so I have to do it. No, you don't. It's your body. You live with the liability of what you do or do not do, no matter what someone suggests. So the better thing to do is seek understanding so you don't feel like you're a slave to their recommendation.
Yeah.
Because then you can make a wise decision of whether or not you'll partake.
That's a great point. It's wild that we don't think that, oh, this prescription or whatever. It's like, oh, I have to do that.
Says who?
You don't. Yeah, exactly.
And if people start getting threatening, like, oh, I already said you had to, just be like, look square in the eye and be like, are you going to live in my skin?
Yeah. No kidding.
That'll shut them up real quick.
Yeah. You take it.
I'm literally telling people to fire their doctors, but like, I do. If somebody like makes a crazy recommendation, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I just say the big fat word, no.
Sure.
And you're allowed to say no.
Yeah.
Now, if they tell you to do something or recommend you do something healthy and you say, no, I'm not going to do that, you'll also live with those consequences too. So who's the responsible party for understanding? It's you.
Yeah. And unless you're
doing not them.
Right. And they might be doing a experiment on their own saying no to that prescription to break through the medical field like you did.
I said a big fat no. And I ended up thankfully living with the outcomes of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm very grateful of that. I mean, it's awesome to know that. Your story's really cool. I can't wait to see what you do in this field from here. Like, as if you haven't done a lot already, from the documentary to your books to just your business, your practice. It's all inspiring and to know people like you, for me, it lifts me up and lifts my business up. And so, like, I can't thank you enough for spending this time with me and our future conversations. It's just awesome. I'm going to drop lines on your website and where people can find you. What do you want to leave with? How do people connect with you? What's the best way? Is it your website?
Yeah, cerebralchiropractic.com. A lot of information, lists a lot of things we deal with. I would say that, like, there's a lot of people, these are the categories I see all the time that aren't getting help consistently.
Yeah.
Headaches, migraines, dizziness, and vertigo if it's not coming from the inner ears. Sometimes it is.
Yep.
Concussions and mild traumatic brain injuries. And this is interesting. POTS, dysautonomias, trigeminal neuralgia, and occipital neuralgia. Those categories, people are getting diagnosed without getting help. They're not getting down to the root cause of what's driving those issues. And those are areas we succeed extremely frequently.
Awesome.
And we understand what's causing it.
Great.
So those are the big impact areas where that we know will make a difference where no one else is.
Perfect. Okay. And your website, people, like, for instance, someone who's a researcher or doing something in your field, they can get a hold of you to collaborate or talk to you.
Absolutely.
Move the needle even more forward.
Yep. Cerebral Chiropractic Center in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dr. Chris. This has been enlightening. And I look forward to more conversations. Really quickly, before we go, if you enjoyed this conversation, please destroy the subscribe button. So make sure that button isn't even there after you hit it. But I'm trying to do better about getting people at the end to engage. And so if you found something from today's episode that spoke to you, please share it. Share this episode, share it with a friend, post it on your story, or just hit us up, NaamanCreative.com, and you can find us. We love hearing how this story from Dr. Chris or others are resonating with you, sparking new connections. And if you're listening and have a story of your own, or you think someone should be on this show, please reach out and let us know who we need to contact. We're all about the community, creativity, and growing through these real conversations and pushing the needle forward. But until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep going after that root.